Video games have been around for a long time. Some consider the first example to be back in 1947, a game by Thomas Goldsmith Jr., which allowed the user to control a dot on the screen which represented a missile firing at fixed objects. Video games have come a long way since then, and I'm constantly amazed by advancements in technology, like amazing graphics, motion gaming, and 3D. But as cool as gaming is today, it's always important to keep memory of the past. In the 70s, video games started to flourish, but the infamous crash of 1983 slowed it down. Through the fall of the Atari, to the quarter-killing arcades, and the rise of Nintendo and everywhere in between, the 80s still gave some of the most influential and still recognizable games of all time. The 80s may have had terrible style, but it did produce entertainment that the world had never seen before. So many gamers' first games were 80s games, and there are so many classics, but I had to narrow it down to 10, which definitely wasn't easy. I chose games that were significant, games that helped create new genres, and games that were amazing at the time and still great today. So, here they are, my top 10 video games of the 80s. In 1982, before Mario was the hero of platforming, it was Pitfall Harry. Created by David Crane, Pitfall was designed for the Atari 2600. Pitfall wasn't the greatest platformer ever, nor was it the first, but it's revolutionary for its gameplay and its graphics. Instead of being a small sprite, Pitfall Harry was very detailed in his movement, and it made him look like the most realistic video game character of its time. Players ran, jumped, and swung over water, pits, alligators, you name it. It was a very unique game at its time, and it helped open the doors for future platforming games to come. Haven't we always been intrigued by aliens? From movies, books, stories, and games, the idea that there's another species out there, friend or foe, has always caught our imagination. Maybe that's one of the reasons why Galaga was and still is so popular. Or maybe it's just because the game is so fun. Whatever it is, controlling a spaceship and stopping hordes of alien monsters in Galaga stole more quarters than anyone could ever count. And after its popularity in the arcades, Galaga was re-released and remade for at least 22 other consoles. That's a lot of dead aliens. Speaking of aliens in space, the Star Wars franchise is one of the greatest examples of our interest in galaxies far, far away. In 1983, a Star Wars arcade game was created. It literally allowed players to sit in an X-Wing and take down TIE fighters and the Death Star. Players sat down in an arcade machine that felt like the real thing and blasted away on a beautiful massive screen. The game had great graphics for 1983 and the gameplay was extremely unique. Later in arcades, it was updated with much better graphics, more levels, and a duel between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader himself.
I am your father.
Of all the genres in arcade gaming, I don't think any have been as popular as fighters. There's something extremely gratifying about KOing an opponent with dozens of people cheering you from behind. Street Fighter is the pinnacle of arcade fighters. It was released in 1987, and since then, the Street Fighter franchise has completely owned the fighter market from arcades to consoles. Every fighting game strives for an easy-to-play, hard-to-master system, and if the thousands of tournaments, both online and off, over the past 20-plus years isn't evidence that they nailed it, I don't know what is.
Brooklyn, don't forget Diamond Gold, baby, all over the world.
Super Mario Bros. Was the first game I ever played. As a young boy, I was absolutely addicted to the game. In fact, my mom hid the NES from me on multiple occasions. Luckily for me, she had to hide the NES Zapper as well, which was big, orange, and easy for me to find. One time, she actually forgot where she hid it, and I had to end up telling her where it was. Super Mario Bros. Is a classic beyond classics. It's the Gone to the Wind of gaming. Miyamoto, the creator, is the Shakespeare of video games, and Koji Kondo, the composer, is the Beethoven of gaming music. Super Mario Bros. Is what it is. It's what every other game has ever tried to beat, and no one will ever match it. Did you know the playable character in Donkey Kong is not Mario, it's Jumpman? Mario was named after a landlord named Mario Segili, and he's not saving Princess Peach. This damsel in distress is named Pauline. Donkey Kong was named after King Kong. The Kong part is pretty obvious, but Donkey? Well, that's because DK is stubborn. But enough with the trivia. Donkey Kong was created by Shigeru Miyamoto, the gaming god behind Mario, Zelda, and pretty much everything amazing that Nintendo has ever had to offer. Miyamoto was basically put in charge to make one good game that would appeal to America. Otherwise, Nintendo America would pull out and Nintendo would stick to Japan. Miyamoto had never even designed a game before. Not only was Donkey Kong a huge success, but without it, Nintendo wouldn't be the powerhouse that it is today. Mario would have never been created. Nintendo may have never entered into America again, and without the NES, the crash of 1983 wouldn't have a savior. and gaming as we know it wouldn't even exist. Thank you, Mr. Miyamoto. One of my favorite franchises ever is the Mega Man franchise. I remember playing it for the first time at a friend's house. We chose to play Mega Man 2 over 1 because of the disturbing box art from the original. I mean, this guy doesn't even look anything like the in-game Mega Man. I instantly fell in love with the epic soundtrack, awesome weapons, great levels and bosses, and perfect level of difficulty. Sure, it's too hard for some people, but I think it's the most challenging games and the most rewarding. Mega Man himself is an awesome game character. I think he should be more popular than he is. He's fast, strong, smart, and has the ability to take your best assets and use it against you. Maybe it's his naiveness that keeps him from being more famous. I mean, really, Mega Man? Stop trusting Wily. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 15 times? Come on. Pac-Man was first released in 1980. Pac-Man himself instantly became the most popular gaming character of his time. His face can still be seen on games, movies, shirts, stickers, bumper stickers, even cars. Pac-Man was the original reason why everyone wanted to go to the arcade. And when it was released on the Atari, it became the highest selling game for the 2600 with over 7 million copies sold. And even though Pac-Man was made 30 years ago, its simple gameplay is still just as fun today as it was back then. Pac-Man does have one hidden flaw though, something that some people just don't pick up on. Of all the over-the-top M-rated gore-fest games, Pac-Man probably still has the most visually disturbing death of all time. What just happened to his face? Tetris is probably the only game that your mom took away from you because she wanted to play it. It's hard to explain why Tetris is so addicting to gamers of all ages and genders. I've seen a 5-year-old play it, and I've seen a 95-year-old play it. So many developers try and fail to make games designed for everyone. They either make it too simple and too easy, or too complex and difficult. But Tetris immediately became the game that everyone wanted to play. And although it still took another 10 to 15 years until video games became something that's cool for everyone to play, not just nerds and kids, Tetris started that phase, and we all have this addicting puzzler to thank for the transition from geeky games to an awesome entertainment medium that is generally accepted by everyone. What can be said about The Legend of Zelda for the NES that hasn't been said before? It's a game that was praised at the time and it's still fun to play today. Brand new releases of games of the same genre still have a hard time competing against the original Zelda, let alone all the masterpiece Zeldas in between.
Great! I can't wait to bomb some Dodongos!
Link, just be quiet, okay? Legend of Zelda for the NES is a huge game that took hours and hours to complete. I remember playing it for the first time at a friend's house and being amazed at the incredible world awaiting to be discovered. And besides a few translation problems here and there, it's a perfect game. Master using it and you can have this? What? All jokes aside, the 80s were filled with amazing games, but none stand out to me like The Legend of Zelda. I can't possibly think of naming a better game from the 80s. The Legend of Zelda is on a pedestal all by itself as one of the most highly regarded franchises in gaming, and the 80s just wouldn't have been the same without our green tunicked hero.